Good morning, church. It's been 3 months since we moved all activities online due to the COVID pandemic. Even though I'm grateful that we have been able to see each other's face via Zoom, I'm still missing you. A couple of weeks ago, Patrick visited the church to get mail, so I met him in person. I didn't realize the meeting in person is quite different until I met him in person. I was moved. I sincerely prayed to God the pandemic would end soon so we can finally meet in person. I would like you to keep physical distancing and cover your faces outside. Those practices are the best way to move our in-person meeting up as soon as possible. Until we eventually meet in person, I hope and pray that we can make our homes beautiful, the beautiful places where God dwells. Through today's passage, we read the story of Isaac and Rebekah, who eagerly prayed to God. They were married when Isaac was 40 years old. They could not pray to God as they had no baby. Thankfully, God answered their prayers. It's simply described in several sentences, but it took 20 plus years for them to have babies. We can imagine how hard their waiting time was. They were discouraged and saddened. Imagine how pleased Rebekah was when she became pregnant. Life in her womb must have been rewarding to her. But the book of Genesis says they jostled each other. They jostled each other within her. She became uncomfortable. She wasn't so sure what the outcome will look like. She said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Two sons are Esau and Jacob, as you know. The firstborn Esau is born hairy and red. These characteristics link to Esau, to the outdoors, and he turns out to be brawny and skillful at hunting. Jacob is born second. He is smooth-skinned and comes out with his hand around Esau's foot. The detail indicates Jacob's desire to upset Esau's status as the firstborn son and to subvert the social customs and expectations that would favor the firstborn. Jostle between brothers indicates future conflicts between Edom and Israel. The people of Edom were descended from Esau, and Jacob was the ancestor of the 12 Israelite tribes. According to Israel's history, Edom ignored Israel's suffering even though they had enough power to help Israel. Thus, Israel wasn't able to forgive Edom. We might become uncomfortable when we read this story, their destiny. Does the book of Genesis mean that, like Israel and Edom, we humans are destined to hate each other from the beginning? Are conflicts in our lives merely an unbearable reality and we cannot do anything? No, the Bible doesn't teach us that divisions and conflicts are default condition that we cannot change. Instead, the scripture reminds us of where we came from. Where we came from. Even though people are now in conflict, they came from one womb. They are all brothers and sisters and brothers, as God created all of us. Divisions and conflicts are not unchangeable destiny, but wounds to be recovered. The wounds will recover when we admit that God is our creator. And we remember that we all came from God, the source of all life. Oftentimes in our lives, we see many people who are in conflict. You can quickly come up with the movement of Black Lives Matter. Many people think Black Lives Matter movement is merely a conflict between black and white or black and other races. Are they jostling each other just like Esau and Jacob? Are they in conflict because of conflicting interest? We should understand why we pay attention to the movement. Black Lives Matter doesn't mean that only the lives of black people are precious or their lives are more valuable than others. We participate in the movement of Black Lives Matter because we know that black lives have been suffocated. As we understand that everyone came from one God, we cannot ignore ongoing injustice on them. As we believe they also came from one God, and we see them as our siblings, we cannot overlook their outcries. We are building peace and justice for all humans in the act of solidarity with historically and daily oppressed people. As long as we believe in God who created all human races and who take care of them, we cannot overlook those ongoing injustice issues. Those who believe in God cannot ignore the suffering of others, regardless of who they are. I know we cannot avoid conflict in life. When conflicts keep swirling around our experiences, we want to give up understanding others. But we should not give up our efforts. Nobody can solve conflicts at all at once. We need to practice remembering that we all came from one God, the source of the life. I think the church is the place in which we are reminded who the source of life. In the church, we can practice seeing others as our spiritual siblings. In the church community, we can get to know God, our neighbors, and ourselves by loving, forgiving, and taking care of one another. When we can see people as our spiritual sisters and brothers. Those practices become our services to God, who created all of us with the same dignity. Since I was appointed to this church, Community UMC, I've been grateful that we all practice being the spiritual family despite many differences. As you can notice, our church has a lot of diversity. Some are from Brazil, Ghana, Burma, Korea, and even other parts of the US. Last Sunday, when we were doing our love feast, I was fascinated to see you sending your prayers and blessings to others, one another. I'm listening to Na, a Ghanaian woman who desperately prayed for Daisy, who is a Burmese and has been suffering from shingles disease. The compassion she had toward Daisy became sincere prayers. We all witnessed how we became siblings in God beyond differences, such as our race, skin colors, and ethnic and national backgrounds. I believe the compassion towards the suffering is the power that makes us one. As God puts the compassionate heart in us, we cannot ignore the pain of others, the pain of our church family. I know we might not be able to understand their suffering fully, but I believe God makes us one when we share our hurts with them. Upon the comforting hearts, we become community, the community of love. I know this church still has many concerns about pastor transition, but if you have concerns, please share them and pray as a community. As a community. Sharing your concerns will guide you to God. To God who is working to save us. Working to save you. I know sometimes sharing concerns with others doesn't seem like solving problems. As the global pandemic lasts longer than we expected, people are losing their composure. This pandemic has been affecting many people, such as small and big business owners, gig workers, immigrant workers, and even international students. Due to the crisis, we can see the dark side of this world, that many groups, especially minority groups, are more affected than others. The racial inequality in the medical and economic system is one of the clear examples of the ongoing injustice at work in the US. I believe we should take this time as our opportunity for fundamental change. Today is a time when we should reflect on how unjust our normality was to some groups. Today is the time when we should transform our lives for a better world. We should build justice and peace in the world, as we believe that those who are suffering are our siblings from one womb. We should hear and follow God's calling. Please remember what God told Abram in Genesis chapter 3. All people on earth will be blessed through you. They will be blessed through you. Likewise, God called you to be blessings to all humans on earth. I heard that since the outbreak of the corona pandemic, Israel weapon industries were transformed into plants, making respirator masks. I was fascinated by that news, by their efforts to be blessings to others. It seems like Micah's prophecy. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Amid global pandemic, many people lose their mind and merely think people are destined to joust one another to survive. But people of God, initiate the work to save the precious lives as they remember God, the origin of all beings. I know we have a long journey, long way to walk to build peace and justice in the world. Managing conflict is not something that we can achieve instantly, but rather a process that we should work on persistently. More often than not, it seems like our efforts to make a better world are fruitless. But we are people of God. We are people who trust God, who doesn't give up loving this world, and whose love will prevail in the end. As God calls us, we also do our best to make the world beautiful. In the midst of conflict, we don't stop looking for possible ways to coexist. We stay patient to build the culture where everyone is fully respected. Please remember Jesus, who didn't give up making the world better. He broke the walls between people, became the bridges between them. He gave his life to us as he desired to let thy kingdom come as it is in heaven. I believe God invited us to walk the path Jesus took throughout his entire life. We are called to break the walls of prejudices, discriminations, exclusion, and hatred, and build the bridges of love and peace and justice. The conflict between Esau and Jacob wasn't an unbearable destiny. As they remembered their root and they began embracing each other, they were reconciled together. But remember, they needed 20 years of journey. Jacob had to wrestle with his life until his hip was put out of joint. Esau must have had similar hardships in his life. Through this story of Jacob and Esau, we learn that God desired us to live out the life of reconciliation despite difficulties. We are born in one womb, and we are all connected in one God. As we remember our reason, we can make the world a better place where all lives matter. I believe God initiates such work before us. As God begins such a way of reconciliation and coexistence, we can participate in that work. I hope that we can respond to God's invitation to the mission of transforming the world. Amen.